Welcome to Aaron Plays. In this episode, we will be doing a breakdown of the Bataille de Hanau from Legion Games, Pratson Editions. This is they call it a primer, which is meant to be an introduction to the Vive l'Empereur system. I've had this on my table now for over 2 months. Me and Mark started playing this as a solo cooperative. I say cooperative, we've been fighting against each other, but it's been a solo cooperative effort in the play style. I've been having the game set up on my table. He's had the game set up on his table. We live about 300 miles apart. There is no vassal module. So we've been using, for the videos and recordings, my map. He's been taking photos from his map and giving orders for how he wants the coalition forces to be moved. And I've done them accordingly. But any sort of intricate little mini decisions I've been making, such as forming squares or cavalry charges or opportunity charges or such forth along that line. However, there has been a few moments where I've, in a moment of panic, or I don't sure if that's the right decision, I've contacted Mark just for verification before I press on. So, Mark, has it worked?
Oh, yeah, I think it has. It's been our first experience of recording a game like this, actually playing a game like this, but it has worked. I mean, having a vassal module would have made it a lot easier on everybody, I think. But we wanted to get this series out really as fast as we could. It's a great introduction to the system, and if we can attract more players to the system by explaining how the game works, how it plays out, then that's all for the better. Sometimes there was some frustration with the photographs and so on and so forth, but no, I think overall our method of play has worked. But that's not the important thing for the viewers. The important thing for the viewers is did they enjoy the experience of watching the battle and how it played out, I guess. And what we're here to do today is to just really to go over our overall impression of this game. I'm already sold on the system, but this game itself is what we're here to discuss today, isn't it, Aaron? So what's your summary take on this game within the system?
I've found it by far the most interesting that I have played so far. Of the system, and I'm not going to use the French, I'm going to call them as English, so it's not exactly what's written on the box. So the 4 battles in Spain was my introductory to the system, and I've so far played 3 of the 4 battles. And I've only really been impressed with one of them so far. That's Salamanca, which me and you played to conclusion. And that has been thoroughly enjoyable. The first one in that box, Okana, I don't understand why it's there. It's a poor scenario. It's basically a bug hunt for the Spanish, as in for the French hunting the Spanish. And as a Spanish player, utterly uninteresting. The other one we played, Sogorian, was it? Sogorian? Sogorian, yeah. That, I don't think we played enough to actually get into the feel and flow of it fully. I'd like to do that one again, but it didn't feel that interesting from the situation it was in. I'm currently just started Vittoria, and I'm not too impressed with what I'm seeing on that scenario either. It seems a little bit one-sided. The French are in such a poor situation, as they were historically. Their troops have got lower morale. They've got less firepower. Their artillery is about on par with the Allies, and their cavalry is woefully weaker. and they're in a bad setup and situation. The generalship's outclassed, and I feel that there's not much chance for them in that. So that overall package, now that I've played it, I'm a little bit disappointed with so far. Salamanca has been great, but the other three, I kind of definitely made my mind up. I don't want to touch that one again with the barge pole. Victoria, I've just started, but I'm playing as the French, and I can't see a way that I can achieve a victory. Now, this one, Hanau, I thought up until the last 5 or 6 turns that it could go either way. It was an interesting setup. You have a stronger force blocking a road, stronger force as in numbers. The coalition, which is made up of Bavarians and Austrians, have a stronger army in numbers, but the French are of such a high quality. You've got the Imperial Guard infantry, Imperial Guard cavalry, good other cavalry, and average other troops as well. But the vast majority of the force is made up of the French Imperial Guard, commanded by the Emperor himself. It is like a sledgehammer. So that creates an interesting, well, I think the word is paradigm, isn't it? You've got a strong, concentrated force of good led troops, well led, against forces that are numerically superior, but inferior in quality, leadership, and coordination between the forces. Would you agree on that one, or do you see it any different force-wise in the battle?
No, I think your summary is fine. I think the key decision for the coalition to have a chance is to not have the rivers at the back when they're fighting. Because of their lower quality, they're more likely to disorder. You need time to recover that, to get them back into fighting formations.
So just showing that on this map here, where we got all these letters, the E's, F's, C's, and such forth, so around this area is where the bulk of the coalition starts. The French are coming in from here, from Leipzig, coming back from the disaster of Leipzig. So the French are starting here. So both forces are actually starting relatively close to each other. There are some
you're into the action straight away. There's no messing.
There are some coalition forces along this road here, and some along here as well, but not much. Most of it is here, and yeah, pretty much on the first turn, the French are in. French Imperial Guard infantry are back here, where you see these M's and N's. So they're moving through these woods, but they can get there within 2 turns. It was actually on turn 3 when the French Imperial Guard emerged from these woods here and ran straight into the coalition line, which just went.
Now, interestingly, as the coalition player, I decided early on to defend forward around the B's and the C's there on the map, right in the centre, because as the guard come out of the woods, you've got an advantage on them, especially if you're in line formation with Jaegers, good quality line troops, cannon intermingled, because you can catch the guard in column formation. Well, actually, they're not in column formation, they're in open order formation while they're in forested hexes. And that worked, but only for about 10 seconds. Now, what I hadn't realized, which is entirely my own fault, was that once a unit suffers disorder, it cannot retreat across a river unless it's adjacent. And they cannot use a bridge either.
Let's just go through that. This Kinzig River here, okay, it has been a bane for both of us. I'll explain how it was a bane for the French in a minute, but for yourself, yes. When you're adjacent, only this is it's a swollen stream, I think they mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
So because you've got the main here is a river that is impassable, and you've got these other little streams which did channel the fight in quite a few instances, But this Kinzig, you can only cross if you start adjacent to it, and then you move across, and then you end adjacent onto it on the other side. So when you disorder, and you've got to disorder 2 hexes, you can't, because you can't cross it, except normally at a bridge. But at a bridge, you can only go across in column. So you can't even disorder across that way, because you're not in column, you're in disorder. So
See,
yeah.
on reflection, if we were to fight that again, I would imagine a better defensive position is they could actually defend on those 2 pieces of high terrain, the little hillocks around D.
Yeah.
That would be fine, because once they decided they could get straight back across, because if you begin your actually no.
No. You can't. If you disordered at that position, you couldn't cross. You'd be destroyed.
Yeah, you still can't. Only in your movement phase could you get across, and not even with cannon. So so yeah, you've got to really get back across the river as a coalition. That was my main takeaway. But you don't have much of an opportunity to do that, because the forces start very, very close. But you certainly could withdraw. You could leave a rear guard to distract the French player, and then
well, considering the French can't really launch the offensive until that guard infantry come up, because they only have 2 other formations of infantry other than the guard infantry, and those 2 other formations are quite weak. So the French can't really launch that attack until turn 3. So
but I think you're right. There is time. There is a little bit of time. But I think the immediate takeaway for me there is my mind's already ticking. Let me just turn this phone off. My mind's already ticking that of how you could fight this differently, which is great. That's a good sign. If you've finished a battle and you're thinking already, right, if we do this, if we do that, it immediately draws you back in as to what you could do differently and how that could pan out. That's a sign of a good game for me. So
absolutely, and that brings me now to the how this river stream, whatever it is, it caused me problems in the game, in that the victory conditions for it. One of the French victory conditions was they gained 30 victory points for clearing north of this river, free of coalition forces. Well, north to me, as the map is north, as you can see by the roundel up here, north is up here, not over here, which is west. And it was being brought up on one of the forums that the designer has now clarified that it is also west of. I had to completely clear everything coalition-wise to gain those 30 victory points. And that was we found out when it was only about 4 turns left. Considering I was more focused on making sure there was nothing north of that junction of the river, because that's when it changes from going north to going directly south. So I was making sure nothing coalition was in this area, which there wasn't. The coalition were now, by that time, were fighting down here and down here. So I then changed what I was planning to do and carried on assaulting over here, trying to get rid of the last vestiges of the coalition here. But they get reinforcements on turn 8 up here, which
gotta be prepared, haven't you? Yeah.
You're got to think about those, right? I mean, and that leads me on to my next thing is the victory conditions, and I think this is not just related to this title, but the victory conditions of all these title games I've seen so far have been a little bit woolly. And I think that may be the design aim. The design, I don't know, I've not spoken to the designer, but I do have a feel he wants you guys us to have a battle, and he's not too bothered about who wins or loses. From a victory point of view, we should be able to tell who's won or lost just by looking at the map. And that's the way I think he's sort of written the victory conditions. Yes, he's awarded 20 points if I clear, make sure there's no coalition forces in Hanau. You get a certain amount of points for steps for eliminations and such forth. But to then not have this fully clarified about that river, that just needs a proofreader.
Yeah,
And then,
Didier could have fixed that by just saying if it was any troops north of the Kinzig River and the main river, which is called the main, or the Ma. But yeah, that could go in a reprint and would fix that issue easy enough. I think the setup sometimes is a little woolly.
Well, another YouTuber has mentioned this. That, all right, it is nice to see no hex numbers. You don't need hex numbers. These letters have been done for setup, but there are some students setting up down here on this road, which says something along the lines of this bridge and along this road. Well, another letter. So all it needed would be another letter sitting down here, like, you know, an X or a Y, you know, within 2 hexes of X along the road. Boom, sorted. Meanwhile, what we're left with is you've got quite detailed instructions here, which is good, and then wild and woolly down here, which is not so good. Now, coming on the components of the game, stellar. I mean, I can't fault the components whatsoever. The map's nice, the pieces are nice, the charts and tables, the new rules. It's a beautiful product. Legion Games have definitely done the system proud with this, as they've done with the previous title, which was the 3 battles in Germany. The 4 battles in Spain, that is the weaker of the product. You can tell that was their first one in the series. It's still black and white rules. The maps and the pieces are fine in there, but I think they've definitely ramped it up for the 3 battles in Germany. And this one is, as they call it, a premiere, an introduction to the system. I think, you know, anyone picking this stuff off the shelf and opening up and looking at it and playing it would be very happy with what they got, and would probably be quite interested to look, well, further into the system.
Yeah, my overall take is exactly the same as that. I think.
Now, the other thing is, all right, we played, there's actually 2 scenarios in the box, because the battle continued historically on the following day. So we fought the main action, which was on the 30th of October 1813, but there's actually an October the 31st action, which we haven't even looked at yet. So I don't know how balanced that is. Most of the guard have, by the looks of it, have left by that time. They've carried on down this road to Frankfurt, but there's a few other French formations around here. So, and I think the coalition, again, by looks of it, not having played it, look like they're actually attacking in that one. So if a vassal module does get made, I'd probably want to do that scenario at some point. Because the downside of the way we did it is I had this game set up on my game table, and I've only got one game table, and it's quite a small game table, for nearly 2.5 months doing it the way we did it. Whereas obviously the beauty of Vassal is click, save, gone, screen's empty. If I had a basement like a lot of American war games seem to have, where they can keep up multiple tables, again, no problem. But here in dear old Blighty, a lot of us don't have that kind of space. And again, if we probably lived next door to each other or within the same town, again, we'd have probably cracked this out in 2 sessions, maybe 3.
Yeah.
But the way we were doing it, recording it and such forth, we were getting probably a full game turn done every week. It was 12 turns. I called it on the 11th turn because it was becoming, at that point, I felt like I was flogging a dead horse. There was not much more that the coalition could do to stop whatever I wanted to do on the map.
Yeah, I would have conceded earlier, but we wanted to see this through just to show how an army routing looked and how it worked, and how you could keep the pressure on and keep the troops moving. I think that's just as important and rarely covered.
Well, yeah, because most of us, we play these games. Time is short. So we play these games till we feel there has been a conclusion, and then stop at that point, move on to the next game. And sometimes we don't get to see the destruction of an army. We feel that we've lost the battle, and let's move on. Let's do another game, which I might win. Well, in this, you're right. We ploughed on, and it was fascinating up to a point of, you know, seeing, to be fair, how frequently you were able to throw something in my way to stop me doing what I wanted to do. Be it a couple of squares, be it a line of 2 infantry regiments, be it 1 or 2 cavalry squadrons, or whatever, just something to plug the gap, because the French didn't have overwhelming forces to be able to get around you and destroy what was in front of them. They had limited forces themselves, though it was still in good quality, still in good order. They didn't have enough to swamp you. So
No,
up until probably about the 10th turn, you were still able to like block as best you could, stop me getting to the routed guys, getting them off the board, and such forth. But at the end there, it was, you know, it was getting to the point where, you know, I just pointed my guns, boom. You know, your morales were so bad by that point. Yeah. Now, as a count up for victory points, I didn't do it. I you know, the battle was over in that sense. There was 1 cavalry regiment here that was still, well, I say one stack of cavalry regiments over here. I still had 2 turns of firing, and I had my guns pretty much surrounding them at that point. So there was the 1 unit up the top here, or sorry, 2 units of yours up the top here. That would have stopped me getting the 30 victory points for having this river. They were sitting in the wood. 2 cavalry regiments sitting in the wood. I had 2 cavalry regiments outside the wood. There was no way I could charge into them. There was no way you could charge out. So we were just staring at each other. But that there would stop me gaining 30 victory points. You know, that to me is one of the things that a victory system sometimes misses. Yes, I would have cleared the road. Yes, I would have exited troops off, so I would have got all the victory points there. I'd taken Hanau. You had nothing to take it back with. And your losses at that point were astronomical.
Well, the narrative there was those Cossacks were observing the destruction of the coalition army. There was nothing they could do about it. They couldn't control the road. They couldn't really influence French use of the road. So VP wise, for whatever reason Didier's put that in, it makes a difference. But in reality, if we were there, if that was the real outcome historically, it wouldn't have made any difference to the French victory. Having a couple of Cossack regiments looking onwards from afar.
So would you recommend this title over, say, the 4 battles in Spain? You know, if someone was wanting to get into this system, and there was the 2 of them sitting on the shelf. All right, okay, the 4 battles in Spain is twice the price.
This system, if someone's played some introductory Napoleonics such as Command and Colours or something like that, and they want to delve into deeper tactical based Napoleonics, this is a great system, and it's not expensive. It's not expensive to get into with this title. It is if you want to get into the other titles, 3 battles in Germany, 4 battles in Spain. You know, you're looking at 90 quid in the UK. In the US and around the EU, it might be different. But as an introductory game, if you want to try the system for yourself, and it can work solo quite well, then yes, I'd hardly recommend it. And it does create a narrative. There are cavalry charges, dramatic cavalry charges. In fact, you deliberately turn the counters for the cavalry from column into line to prepare for the charge, and then drive them forward. The infantry do form squares, and you can see them forming squares with the addition of the rear counter that you add onto the back of a line to make it look like a square formation. And you know, it creates that Napoleonic narrative. And you can picture this this in your mind. The game, the aesthetics, how it looks, how it plays out, I don't have any issues with. The only things that we've had small issues with are the initial setup and some of the victory conditions, and that's it. But yeah, I would heartily recommend it. No hesitation.
I agree. And again, if both were sitting on the shelf and I knew what both games, so the 4 Battles in Spain or this one, I would say to a newbie player, pick this title up, play it multiple times. Okay, we played it once. Play it multiple times because you'll learn quite a lot the first time you play. I think the battle will probably play better and be more interesting the second time you play it. But as we said, the ability to replay the same scenario and should get different conditions occurring makes it a good purchase. You've got a lot of bang for your buck in there.
Yeah, I think so. Also, something we haven't mentioned so far is there's a chap who thrives on this game called Dave Murray, and Dave Murray on Board Game Geek. If you go there, he's put a lot of information up, a lot of posts up. He's done a lot of videos on YouTube as well. But he's consolidated the rule book, added notes, made notes of his recommendations for the optional rules, which ones to use, which optional rules he thinks when you use them in this certain manner give it more flavor. He's done a lot of work on a lot of support in the background on this system, and it's well worth looking at his stuff. The rules aren't different. He's not created house rules. Well, he has, but they're all. But they're finely tuned over decades of play, because he's been playing this from the Pratson days. Because I believe the first games in this series came out like 20 years ago.
About 95.
Yeah, but you can't get them anymore, sadly. But Legion might fix that. They might be re-released, so we'll see how this goes. But overall, yeah, an A-star from me. Recommended. I quite happily overlook any initial setup and victory condition issues.
Well, quickly going back over what you were saying there, out of the box, what you got here, there is there's one rule book, and it's got a standard set of rules, and then you've got advanced set of rules, and then you've got optional rules for command to make it whatever level of command system you want to use. Dave Murray, what he's done with his set of rules, he's amalgamated the advanced set of rules in with the standard set, so you can just read it as one set, and then it's got this again, the optional command rules and fatigue rules at the back. Now, I was playing this with the advanced rules as written out of the rule book in the back of the game. I tried to avoid any house rules as such. We use fatigue by division or formation, whereas in the rule book it's written as per corps. Well, there wasn't really that. I mean, there was some units on here which a corps was 2 units. So we were doing fatigue by formation using the little dice and such forth. And the command system, it was by about turn 10 I realized that, because prepping for the next game that me and Mark are going to do, I thought I'd reread the command rules, and that's when I realized been making a slight mistake throughout. We were using, there's 5 levels of command. We were going to be using level 2 and level 1 effectively, and we made a few mistakes. But that was again corrected, and it's mentioned in one of the videos. I'll be interested to see what they actually release next. You know, primer means that this is the system they want to do. Will they reissue anything that's come out prior to Legion Games doing it? Or, as Didier has mentioned in his chats and emails, or whatever they're called on the forums, he wants to move on to newer things. You know, he's mentioned 1809 campaign. He's mentioned an 1807 which would be interesting. Both of those campaigns I'd be interested in. So, but I would like to see the Waterloo. Again, wrong out of print. He did Leipzig, a massive, 10 maps. That would be great because it's now long out of print. Well, I think there was a copy of it for £500 on eBay. I ain't got £500 to play or spend on a game that I'll probably never get to the actual table. So, even if they reissue it as just a vassal module and you could purchase just the charts and tables to allow it to pay, I would pay that.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good way for, we can't afford to do a whole full reprint, but if you want to purchase a vassal module via Legion Games, you have to do a code to get it operating, but it has all the charts and tables, or we'll send you a PDF of all the charts and tables if you send us, I don't know, a small, reasonable fee. That would be worth playing. Because, all right, you only have the game in the digital format, but for most of us, especially over in Europe, that might be the only way we get to play such a massive game anyway.
Yeah.
So as a wrap to this, then, I think the way we played it, it worked. It would have been better on the vassal module because it wouldn't have kept my table up. But as a primer to the system, it worked. Was I thoroughly entertained while I was playing it? Absolutely. And yeah, I can't think of the negatives are minor, they're nitpicks. So overall, thumbs up from me to Legion Games and to DDA for the game itself. And as yours, by the sounds of it, thumbs up from you?
Absolutely.
Now, would that be one thumb or two?
No, we'll give it a 1. We'll give it a 1. Don't want them to seem to be too keen, do we? We don't want them to be too smug about it.
No, but we would like, as you were saying earlier, the more people that get into the system, the more likely they'll do extra titles.
Yes.
So, tell your mothers, tell your granddads, get them down the shops and get some more purchases of this game. So anyway, we'll call that the end. We are planning to do another video, which will be a comparison between the Viva la Emperor series and the Hexasims series.
Mm-hmm.
So look out for that episode.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you've watched, hit the like button. If you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button. If you, again, enjoy what you're watching, and then the alert button, that'll let you know when I put up any new content. As always, comments much appreciated. Anything we missed, anything. If you've played this yourself and your thoughts on it, let me know in the comments. I respond to every comment that everyone has put up. Until next time, bye.